Hey everyone, it's Floss. Welcome back to my channel. It is time for a review. Now this is a series review, even though I just finished the last book. So I will try and keep the spoilers for the last book to a minimum in the first phase, but for the first two books, you may get spoiled if you haven't read them a little bit. The series is The Fifth Wave by Yancey, and the books are The Fifth Wave, book 1. Book 2 is The Infinite Sea, and book 3, which is the just released The Last Star. And it's the final book in the series. The series is about Cassie Sullivan, who is a 16, 17-year-old girl who is, as we meet her, what she believes to be the last person left on Earth. It's after an alien invasion has taken over the world in a series of waves. The waves include electronics being completely shut down, and then tsunamis and earthquakes and natural disasters, and then viruses that basically people just die in horrible, gruesome ways. You flash back to Cassie's time before the alien invasion and as it progresses, and we learn about what happens to her family, including her little brother Sammy, who she has been separated from as the book begins and has pledged to go and find Sammy. And so, The Fifth Wave, that's the story of The Fifth Wave. It's a series for me that's been at war with itself in weird ways. Much like the book itself with the aliens and the humans, in that it feels like it wants to be two different things at times. The first is an action YA, girl saves the world, but not really because she's not the typical girl scenario event. And that does really well, especially in the first book. That's sort of, the action is compelling, the characters are interesting. Some of the more illogical plot leaps that happen later on are believable because by then you're going with it and you're kind of enjoying it. But then it's also a meditation on humanity and what our morals are and what our trust means as citizens, as in our immediate family, but also in a wider sense of what we are, part of the global community. And these two positions really play against each other all the way through the series, especially from book 2 onwards. So book 1 was a pretty well received, intelligent YA alien invasion, a dystopia, and a lot of people compared it to things like the Hunger Games and whatnot, and it sort of had parallels more of character and, you know, dark times as opposed to actual, this is exactly the same story. But then book 2 really slammed the brakes on and really challenged me as a reader, for sure, about what was happening, and at times the writing was beyond the plot, if that makes sense. And in The Last Star, it's the final showdown, really. We've had separation and reuniting of characters of the different parts of the makeup of the main characters. Cassie is with her crew, if I can say that without spoiling it, and Ringer has been separated after the events of The Infinite Sea, which were crazy bananas. And I read The Infinite Sea and was shocked. Shocked is not the right word, because I was almost confused and my brain hurt a lot after The Infinite Sea. In The Infinite Sea, though, and then The Last Star are very similar books in that a lot of the characters are analysing their place in all of this, and the misinformation that they've been given and what they're going to do with that, and what is love and how far do you go for love, and what is humanity and how far do you believe in your own humanity when what you've been told is not true. And these are amazing topics to cover, but the density of the topics in the setting, they were jarring a lot of the time. The Fifth Wave, the whole series was a book the whole series struggled to connect these amazingly elegant, dense ideas to the action and the plot of what was happening. And that the Cassie that we were having on the page and the Cassie that I feel like Yancey wanted us to explore were two different people, and the complexities of those things sometimes worked beautifully and other times failed. And The Last Star was almost the perfect book for the series, because it was the highlights of the book, the success of what the Fifth Wave series did well was there, but also the mistakes that the series made for me were there as well, in that the action was a bit stronger, I felt, than The Infinite Sea, and a bit more understandable. I think especially in The Infinite Sea, in Ringer's plot, I struggled to understand what was happening a lot of the time, and I found the whole razor, ringer, Vosh, teacup situation, I didn't quite understand what was going on. I literally often was rereading passages to go, okay, wait, who was that? Because it was bogged down by, in the middle of action set pieces, characters examining their own value and their self-worth and their humanity, and it just got lost in that. And I think that happened again in The Last Star, where we had characters who were, here's the plan, here's we have to execute it, here's how we get to A to B, here's how we stop the invasion, here's how we make these steps, mixed with their own examination of their life, their value, who they are, what they mean in the world, what the entire alien world wants. And it was a bit like, it reminded me a lot of Lost, a TV show in a way, in that for people who wanted specific answers to who was the smoke machine, who was the smoke monster, what was the arm's purpose, very factual, pragmatic, blum, 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 blum. The fifth wave was also, there was all people wanting those answers, and who were the aliens, how are we going to defeat them, how is Cassie or whoever going to save the day, who was going to get together with who, what was going to happen. They wanted those pragmatic, literal answers solved, versus the more greater emotional core life analysis situation, which is what happened in Lost, where the finale was very divisive because of that. This was a bit the same, where instead of answering specific questions really solidly, we were sort of given an understanding, and it kind of was a bit like, oh. But we were also given these characters having these major emotional journeys and like self-examination that was almost like a therapy session at times. You know, Ben, Zombie and Ringer and Cassie and even Evan had these incredibly soul-dense discussions. Soul-dense discussions that were at times slowed things down and got above themselves and became a bigger question of, was that character meant to have that discussion, or was Rick Yancey trying to contemplate the meaning of life? And that's kind of at points what I felt like we were discussing, was the meaning of life and the meaning of our value in it. And it was incredibly high as a discussion. And it was floating away from what was happening on the page at times. The series as a whole, I enjoyed. I feel like it got away from Rick Yancey towards the end. The success of the series didn't quite reach what it wanted to, I think. It's a very interesting examination to me of a very literary style of plot, of looking at plot and characters and analysis, meeting a category and a genre that were almost the opposite. In the category of young adult and the genre of action, dystopia, invasion requires a lot more speed and efficiency. And I felt like it was a series that the speed and efficiency of it was interesting, in that we would fly through things and then slow right down. So it was quite stop-starty. The writing was beautiful though, in terms of there was some really amazing moments, but I don't think it ever connected fully as a flowing plot. And I guess that's probably where I struggled with it, in that we were hitting a major high and then lulling into a low. And so, would I recommend the Fifth Wave series? That's a tricky question. I think if you like to be incredibly challenged by your young adult action, adventure, dystopia kind of novels, it's definitely an interesting read. I think as a complete series, it makes a bit more sense. I think The Infinite Sea was a book that jarred a lot of people out of the Fifth Wave. They were tonally two very different books, and they asked readers to go places that we weren't ready for. Yeah, it's a strange, it's a very odd series in a way. It comes in a package that looks like this and then reads like this, and the two never quite gel perfectly. Okay, so there's a few spoilery plots I want to talk about from The Last Star. Specifically, if you haven't read the book, now is the time to maybe check out some more reviews, see what other people have to say about it, and I'll talk to you next time. Go, 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 go. Say bye. Okay, so spoilery stuff from The Last Star. It's going to be a bit of a rambling kind of thing. Evan Walker dying, I wasn't as heartbroken as I thought I would be. Well, and he didn't die really, but I liked the twist on that he was erased. I thought that was really cool, and I kind of wish he'd stayed dead. The whole thing of the sort of epilogue with him, Ben, and Ringer, or Marika, and him going off to kill all these people, I didn't want to know that that's what Evan Walker had now, is going to live this miserable life kind of situation. I kind of wish that he'd been killed by Cassie and that had been it, and that almost in a way that the mayfly should kill the shark. I kind of wish that had happened. I liked Cassie dying. I thought that was a good, the purpose of her was realised. Her ultimate goal to save Sammy was about saving humanity, and she was all of them. The whole downloading into Wonderland thing was just bizarre, but at the same time, that whole sciencey stuff for me was always very odd, and it was better explained than, say, the Divergent science, but it never quite felt real. Yeah, it never, I don't know, it just never clicked a bit. Marika being pregnant, I know. That's when I was like, what? Come on. I mean, I know her and Razor had a lot of sexy times, but I didn't buy it. I wasn't on board with it. And then that they had the baby in the end, it was a little bit happy families in the country with the cholera. No, I wasn't on board with that. The zombie, I like Ben Zombie as a character. I liked how broken he is. I think the film Zombie was not the same one as the books at all, which is a shame. But he was just too pretty, and still after the invasion was still too pretty, happy and lovely and whatever. Whereas the zombie in my mind was like a broken man who that smile was just like the window into what could have been. I like that Sammy was a bit of a dick to his sister all the time, but then she got to see him in Wonderland. The Vosh loving Marika in a maternal way was weird. Like, I didn't really get that from book 2. And then to have him kind of say, I want you to come with me to the mothership was just weird. I didn't, I mean, yes, it allowed him to kind of have that fatal flaw, but a bit of a plot contrivance, really, for me. The whole explanation of the aliens as well, with them having committed this from a remote distance and probably weren't even alive, so it was just kind of a thing that was happening. Sure. Again, the science for the whole thing never really explained, and all these kids killing everybody, like the massacre at the end was crazy. And I think the series, for a series that spoke so highly of the value of life and what these people were striving for, the murdering of people who were in the wrong place, like the other squad, was just, it was incredibly violent in a way that I don't know. I mean, was it necessary? I don't know. I didn't think so. Let me know in the comments if you have read The Fifth Wave, if you have read all the series. If you have read all the series and you're leaving a comment about The Last Star specifically, put a big spoilers on it. Not so much about The Infinite Sea, because that book's been out for over a year, so my rule of spoilers is lifted. But I'd love to know your thoughts. If you've read any or all, have you seen the movie? What did you think of the movie? I want to hear all your Fifth Wave theories, fancy stuff, whatever. Leave it all below. So The Fifth Wave, Book 1, The Infinite Sea, Book 2, and The Last Star are all out, both in e and physical. I'll have some links below for you to order from your local retailer. And I'll be back with another excitingly vague review.